In IrriMaker you have the option to space your laterals and your emitters in a certain way, in a gridded way or a staggered way, but in some cases you would want to line up your tree line on the one border, so that's quite difficult to do, but IrriMaker developed a function for that, and I just want to show you how we can achieve this so that you still have your normal row spacing, your normal emitter spacing, but then that the tree line starts on the actual border of a block. So to do that, I'm just going to clear this. This is just to illustrate with the image, and what we've got is the boundary lines of the blocks drawn in CAD, and I just want to get rid of the irrigation that's in that drawing at the moment. In fact, I'm just going to go to a new project, and what you've got here is a few lines that I've drawn out. The two blue lines are just the normal lateral spacing, the tree line spacing. In this case, that we can measure it. I'm just going to get out of IrriMaker for that, and I'm going to use F6. You can also use F6 on your keyboard and ask the program to give you a distance between lines. So we're going to use this option where I just click on the line and I just say perpendicular to the next line. That gives us our specific distance. Alright, so then we have another line, and so how this is going to work is we're going to use that top yellow line, which I'll quickly just ID. That line is going to be the border of the actual block, and it's also the position of our header tree lines, so where our top tree would be and where we also would want a emitter. And then this line here, let's just unselect it. This one is our lateral row spacing, and I actually drew a lateral in CAD. That's just a line that's actually the position of our first row, just to illustrate it, and this line I just drew just to show you the distances, but we don't really need that line, so for argument's sake I'm going to delete that line for now, and I'm actually going to delete that line also. So what's going to happen is there's a function in IrriMaker. If I just want to illustrate that to you, if we go to our blocks page, and we first need to add our blocks, I'm just going to say add new. I just practiced a little bit before I did the video because I always tend to forget, and that's why I figured I must make a video of this. But there I'm using track line, and it tracks the block boundaries, and it says, yeah, that's the block. Okay, so it's a 1 hectare block, and normally this function only works with the sprinkler function, and we're going to use this option here, the 2 CAD lines. Now let's just say if I don't use that, and I'll show you what will happen if I have my normal 4 meter row spacing and my 7.7 that we want in this case, and we'll just use free as our row direction for now. And you choose an emitter. I'm just going to choose any emitter, it doesn't really matter, any pipe. And I'm going to hold my cursor. This is how I would normally do it with the free mode, and I'll just say shift and tab just to line up with that line. And then usually I would go and select the line endpoint function, and then the program goes and it fills all my emitters into position. Now you can see it gives us the perfect 4 meter spacing. The 7.7 row spacing is there, but my headers, my top trees, don't have emitters on them, and we want to get past that now, like the picture I had in the beginning. So I'm going to say no, I'm not satisfied, and we're basically going to redo this. Alright, so for this exercise we're going to use the 2 CAD line option, and this means we need to draw 2 CAD lines. Now the border of the block was drawn in yellow CAD, and it's important to realize that those lines are actually segmented. If I can switch, that light blue little cross means that these lines are separate items or entities, And maybe I should just illustrate that as well. If I say CAD line move and I grab it, that line is a separate entity. It doesn't grab the whole yellow line, meaning it's not a real polyline. So that's important to know. Okay. And then I need to do a little bit of preparation. So what we'll do is we'll say CAD line add, and we'll say copy line, and we'll grab that header line and we'll copy it down the distance of 4 meters, which is my emitter spacing down this line. So there's a snap mode for that. We're going to say specified distance from endpoint, and then I'm going to just click on this line, and because I click here, it's going to start counting from that cross downwards the distance I specify. In this case, I want that to be 4 meters. Right. Now, so this line is actually perfectly parallel to that line, but it is on that length exactly 4 meters, so this distance should be a little bit less. If we go perpendicular and we measure from the line endpoint there, and we go perpendicular, that is the actual distance of that line. So we'll just measure that. I'm using F6 again and ask what is the line length, and you can see it's 3.881. So you go ahead and you copy that. That's important. Okay, I'll leave those lines there so that you see it when it happens and everything falls into place. But that's sort of the recipe. We need that yellow line, we need the blue line, and we need to know what that distance is of that section there. That's the key element. Okay, so let's go and put in all our laterals and all our pipes and so on. I should have said emitters actually. So we go to blocks, and so you don't even have to put in an emitter spacing because the emitter spacing will be derived. The lateral spacing, the blue line going parallel, that's important, so that's a key element here. And I already said this only works with the sprinkler layout, so we're going to use the 2 CAD lines option. And then we're going to use, because we've now activated the 2 CAD lines option here, it's going to ask me the emitter and pipe like normal. So let's go ahead and do that. You can choose the emitter you want. Doesn't matter what I choose now. I'm just illustrating. The pipe you want to use, that's obviously important, but for now we don't care. And then it says fix grid layout position, indicate CAD line showing lateral direction. So this is the blue line that shows that lateral direction, and it's actually going to start at that node and count along that line from that position. And then it says indicate the CAD line showing the 3 direction. You can see it down here. Okay, so this is the 3 direction line, so I can just click on it. And then it asks me, enter the 3 spacing distance. In other words, the parallel distance between that header line and the next emitter, that orange line for instance. And we copied it earlier, so we just paste that value in there. And then we say OK. Right, and then you can see it put in all our header position sprinklers in, and exactly at the correct parallel distance. I left that line there so that you could see it. It is now in perfect position, so we'll say yes. And I'm just going to say done for now, and get rid of this 0 elevated option. By the way, this just happens because we don't have a survey loaded, so the nodes are just 0 elevated, and it just reminds us of that. But here you can see the derived emitter spacing. I wanted 4 meters, and it is exactly 4 meters. And lateral spacing is again 7.7 meters like we wanted it. But let's go and measure some distances. Alright, so I'm going to say F6 again on my keyboard, or F6 on the left of your screen. Go for 2 points, and we'll just say endpoint to endpoint. Let's say from that endpoint to that endpoint. Well, that's not perpendicular, so that's not really relevant. So we're going to go perpendicular, and that should be 7.7. And the distance from endpoints, let's go from that endpoint to that endpoint. That's our emitter spacing. 4 meters. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so there you have it. Now we have 3 lines that starts on the actual border at the top, and it's sort of a staggered scenario, but it lines up with our trees. So every tree will have a emitter associated with it. and we're good to go. So you can put in the rest of our elements and design this block further.